Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're well. This is basically, if you're new, a podcast that used to be my blog on my website about what I've been up to. As simple as that. Reviews, ideas of things to do, and everything in between. One of the things we did recently was go to Marco Pierre White Steakhouse, just near Liverpool Street Station in London. We had been there before, and then towards the end of last year, my girlfriend happened to be on the Virgin Experience Days website when she found this deal at said restaurant for a £60 voucher, which included a 5-course meal for two with a cocktail each. She thought that sounded pretty reasonable. As I said, we had been there before, so we knew it was pretty good. She bought that as a joint Christmas present for the both of us, and we finally got round to doing that a few weeks ago. We did make a bit of an evening of it, because why wouldn't you? My other half is a massive foodie. She likes nice food, nice drink, nice restaurants, and she does like Italian food and drink. Next to Liverpool Street Station, there's a place called Italy, which is a massive complex, really, full of Italian bars, restaurants, bakeries, and shops where you can buy every Italian product you could pretty much think of. We'd been for a look round there a few times. We were a bit early for dinner, so we thought we'd try the bar they have in there. I must say, it was very good. The wine they supplied was lovely. The service was fantastic. We just stayed for one quick drink in there, but I'm sure we will end up there again at some point. We also found a really nice pub just round the corner from the steakhouse where we were going, where we had another pre-dinner drink. It was just slightly off the beaten track. They had plenty of seats, the bar staff were very good, and it had a nice atmosphere and ambience to it. It was so good, in fact, after we'd had our meal, we went back there for one more drink before we got our train home. The meal itself was great. It's a very well-run restaurant, as you'd expect. I'm sure Marco Pierre White is not putting his name to something if it's not done properly. So we were very well looked after. The booking of the voucher meal and the execution of it was all perfectly fine and straightforward, and the cost was, as they said. We got our cocktail before our meal. We got the 5 courses. There were some items on the menu which you could pay a supplement for if you wanted them. Also, if you wanted any sides with your meal, you had to pay for them, and of course any extra drinks aside from the cocktail that came with the package. That was not a surprise. That was exactly what we were expecting. As it was a steakhouse, funnily enough, I thought for my main I'd go for the steak, which was fantastic. Tasted amazing. The peppercorn sauce was great, and it was perfectly cooked. We had a lovely meal and evening. We were probably in there for about 2 hours in total enjoying our meal, and I did get to have a gluten-free dessert. That is the other thing as well. They can cater for me and my celiac disease in there, which is another reason we will probably go back again at some point. I don't tend to spend much time with my sister nowadays, but recently I spent a Saturday afternoon with her, which was very nice. We just drank tea and chatted and caught up, but she had full control of the TV, it being hers, so she dictated what we watched. I'm not a massive TV watcher or even someone who uses the streaming services that much, to be honest. I'm either out or I tend to listen to music. There's very few programs I'll watch and even fewer films, but I was in her company. It was her choice, so she selected what we were watching. One of the things was an American documentary, I suppose you could call it, about some people who were searching for Bigfoot. I joined it when they were talking to a guy who lived out in the middle of nowhere, who claimed he had heard and he thought seen in the distance, quite a way off, something he described and thought could maybe be a Yeti, and he almost pinpointed exactly where he thought he saw it. He then disappears, and then this couple, at least I presume they were a couple, stayed on with the film crew to try and hunt it down. It took them about a day to make their way through the undergrowth. It was thick forest to get to the point where this gentleman had said that he'd spotted something unusual and unexplained. They got there and they just so happened to find an empty cave. They managed to crawl into the cave and tried to investigate if they thought someone or something was living there. As it turned out, they found some old bones and a bit of hair, which could have been from a human, could have been there 5 minutes, could have been there 500 years. Who knows? Anyway, rather excitedly, they set up camp and set up cameras around the cave. Obviously, they were camping at a safe distance. They went back quite a bit, but they had these cameras set up all around, and they left basically one of their packed lunches, a Tupperware tub with some food in, to see if the bait was taken. They camped out all night. There was an horrendous storm. They got very wet and cold, but during the night they heard something. They could not see it, found something on their thermal imaging cameras which was inconclusive to what it actually was, and when they checked out the cave in the morning, what they'd left in their Tupperware and the Tupperware itself had completely disappeared. Although the camera that they'd rested on a tree, which was the only one facing right at the cave, you're not going to believe this, it fell over. So whatever it was must have accidentally knocked it over before it got there. So there was no footage of exactly what happened. They still think they might have found Bigfoot. I am very skeptical when it comes to these sort of things, so I'm pretty sure they didn't. It also turned out to be the same night as the Britain's Got Talent final. I hadn't watched any of Britain's Got Talent this year whatsoever. That's just because I've been busy. I haven't got a big problem with it. In fact, in the past, I've actually been to some of the auditions and sat in the audience. A mate of mine did very well on it a few years ago, and I've met a few people who were on the show over the years. It's just that I'm rarely in on a Saturday night, so I hadn't actually caught any of this year's programme. So sitting down to watch the final, I didn't really know what to expect. You hope you're going to get the creme de la creme, the best acts in the country, but they always try to put something in the final for everyone, shall we say. Some of them were very, very good. Some of them, I was a bit confused as to how they'd got so far in the competition. But then again, I guess by that point, the public has to take some of the blame, because once they got through to the semi-finals, it is on the public vote, most of the people who get through. So it's kind of down to them. I didn't actually get to see all of it, because part of the deal of me spending some time with my sister was I also had to go and pick up my parents from a wedding they were at after dropping them off there earlier in the day. So I missed watching the remainder of the final and finding out who had won on the night. Although watching as much of it as I did, it did interest me enough to actually find out who won, and I think it was a very deserved winner, and I wish them all the best with their future career. The other thing my sister watched was Gogglebox, which is also something my girlfriend and I do watch from time to time. I find it impossible to keep quiet at the best of times, so talking about the TV whilst you're watching TV works perfectly for me, and that's something you could really do while you're watching Gogglebox. In fact, I think I would be quite good on Gogglebox because I watch so little television in general. Anything they show to me and ask me to comment on will 9 out of 10 times be completely fresh and completely new. So I might be able to put a new take, a new slant on it that nobody's thought of. And I think I would be quite amusing. Plus, if I did do it with my other half, we just spend the entire time we're watching TV, talking to each other about it while the programmes are on anyway. Be quite natural and normal, I think. We were due to be going to a wedding reception, but unfortunately the groom fell ill a couple of weeks before and it was cancelled. We were going up to the Northampton area and meeting up with some friends of ours who were also going to the reception anyway. With the reception off, we still decided to go up and meet them for the evening and have dinner. It's always a bit tricky and a bit difficult trying to book somewhere. For me, they know me well, so rather than booking somewhere, they basically asked me to suggest where I might be able to eat. So I did some research in the area, suggested a pub that I'd found that had got good reviews and seemed to be able to look after celiac people very well. As it turned out, it was a really nice country pub that they liked and had been to quite a few times. That was only about a 15-minute taxi ride away from where they lived. So it actually worked out quite nicely. It was a bit like planes, trains and automobiles to get there. Linda, my girlfriend, was working in Northampton, so she was there already, so she could drive to our friend's house where we were staying for the night. I was working in London that day, so had to make my own way there, which meant I let the train take the strain. Although that worked out reasonably well. I got the train into Northampton and a taxi to where they lived. I got there about half an hour before we were due to leave for dinner, which meant I just had time for a cup of tea, which I always like to have as my first drink after any journey, and then it was time to head out. It was a really nice pub, thoroughly enjoyable evening. When my girlfriend and I are out together, I prefer red wine, she prefers white, which means obviously we rarely get to share a bottle because we want different wines. One of our mates does like red wine as well, so we decided to share a bottle, and thankfully we've got similar tastes. It took us only a very brief conversation to work out that we'd have a Melback to share, and I must say it was an excellent bottle of wine. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The food was really nice. They looked after me perfectly fine. Not a celiac accredited restaurant, but they knew what they were doing. Menu was clearly labelled and they had gluten-free options. They did have a gluten-free dessert I could have, although it did confuse me slightly. Maybe this is just me getting this wrong, but I thought Eat a Mess by default would come with some sort of fruit. So I saw on their menu they had what they called a toffee popcorn Eat a Mess. So I understood it would be Eat a Mess, cream and meringue, obviously with the toffee popcorn. And I thought it would also come with some sort of fruit. That's what I was expecting. When it arrived, it did not. There was no fruit, but everything else I mentioned there. It tasted amazing. I've got no complaints, but I just thought an Eat a Mess isn't an Eat a Mess unless it has some fruit with it, which since then it's been suggested I might have been wrong. Either way, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not a complaint, it's just an observation. We then went back and had one more drink before a sensible, reasonably early night, and then the next morning. One of the great things I often think about staying at good friends' houses, especially those who are very good at entertaining, it's the next morning where you can have a relaxed start and there's a big fry-up for everyone to get involved in and have a good hearty meal to start the day, which is exactly what we did. A fantastic and fully enjoyable night away. You know what it's like when you get a bit older and it's sometimes harder to meet up with your friends regularly, particularly those who have wives, girlfriends and children. I think it's just because there's so many events going in the family diaries. It's so hard to find a date when everyone is available. So Towards the end of last year, a mate of mine decided to set up what he called our dining society, with the aim being that we go out for dinner together every, ideally, 3 to 6 months. We did the first one in December. It's a couples event. It was really good. Sadly, not everyone quite made it to that one, but we got a fair few of us. We had our most recent meeting of the Dining Society just a week ago. Again, I feature heavily in the booking of restaurants because with my celiac disease, it has to be somewhere I could eat and get a gluten-free meal. And also, my mate's wife is celiac too, so there's actually 2 of us in the party. This time we went over to Reading and had a table booked at Prezzo. Linda and I decided to make a bit of a night of it, so we booked a room in the Malmaison Hotel in the centre of Reading, which was really nice. We made an excellent choice there. So we arrived there about mid-afternoon and got ourselves checked in. I have a ridiculously small head and small face, and my eyes seem quite close together. Therefore, it is almost impossible to buy hats that fit my head, and also to get sunglasses that suit me. They all look far too big and too wide. Most of the ones you see in shops, when I try them on, make me look like I've got a pair of those extra large joke ones on, or look like they're Elton John's glasses from the 1970s. So my mission was to go and find some sunglasses that I liked and that fitted. We were in our 5th shop looking for some sunglasses when we found a nice selection. It was John Lewis, so obviously it was quite a classy selection of glasses, and straight away the shop assistant was on me and showing me glasses, and she picked up a few initially that she tried to get me to try on, which were far too big and exactly what I don't like. Then she did point us towards a pair that seemed a bit smaller, and I had a look at them and I thought, yeah, they actually look like they might work. I tried them on and thought, yeah, they're okay. They're still a bit big, but they don't look ridiculous and they actually quite suited me. Then she told me that she thought they were in a sale and had £30 off. The price on the ticket was £70, and for someone who has a habit of losing and breaking sunglasses, even though I thought they suited me, £70 just seemed a bit too much. But if you could take off £30 and they're suddenly £40, that is a different ball game. So I put them back, had a look round at all the other sunglasses just in case we were missing something. I then came back to them, tried them on again, decided I'd like them. So I picked them up and said to her, yeah, I'd like to take them please. You say they've got the £30 off. At that point she looks a bit unsure and says, I think I've got that right, and they've got the £30 discount on them. I was like, in my head, I really hope they have. Anyway, she takes me to the till, they run the scanner over them, the price comes up, we're good, it has got the discount, so I got these new sunglasses for 40 quid, which I was very much looking forward to wearing at some events I was going to. Unfortunately, that never happened. I'll explain why later on in this episode. With my sunglasses purchased, we went back to the hotel to get ready for our night out. We got ready a bit early. The table wasn't booked until 7:30. We were keen and ready to go by about 5:45. There was a really nice hotel bar in the Malmaison, so we thought it would be rude not to have a pre-dinner drink in there. We were umming and ahhing what to have. As I said, I like red wine, my other half likes white. We both don't mind some champagne, particularly to kick off an evening. So we decided to have a glass of nice champagne each. That was the plan. We thought we'll just have that. That'd be lovely. Nice start to the evening. We'll meet some friends who are coming over a bit early first before we go to dinner and have a drink with them. As we're nearly finishing the glass of champagne, I get a message from my mate saying their train's been delayed. They're going to be a little later. We're still too early. We're really comfy and enjoying the bar. The champagne was nice. So we thought, It's the weekend. Let's have another glass of champagne. Then we'll meet our friends, still go for a pre-dinner drink with them. And then lightning did strike twice. Once again, their train got delayed further, found out as we'd finished the second glass of champagne. Now really, we only had 20 minutes to wait until they were there and we were going to go straight to the restaurant for the meal. So what we could have done was just sat there and waited. But once you've had 2 glasses of really nice champagne and someone says, do you want another glass of really nice champagne? I think in the same position, you would have done the same thing and said yes. So long story short, 3 glasses of champagne down each before we even meet everybody else at the restaurant. All got there on time, sat down. Unfortunately, this time there were less people at the dining society meal as one couple had to pull out quite late on as one of them wasn't well, which is a shame. But if we keep these things going regularly, it means at least a core amount of us will regularly meet up and eventually we will all get together sooner than we would have without this in place. The meal was fantastic. As always, Prezzo looked after me and my friend's wife from a gluten-free point of view. They were offering something called bottomless drinks, which basically meant for a certain price on certain drinks, you had an hour and a half to basically get as many refills as you liked. You couldn't double park was the rule, but once you'd finished your drink, you could get another one straight away within that hour and a half period. Several of us, myself included, took part in that arrangement and did manage to get our money's worth, just in case you're worrying. It was a good night. We went for one more drink in a pub nearby after the meal and then we said our goodbyes. We haven't put the next date in, but hopefully either just before Christmas or slightly earlier, we plan to have another meal. It's a great way of forcing ourselves to catch up in a big group with everyone all on the same night. For the last 9 years now, I have been going to Royal Ascot at least once every year. Ideally, I would love to go for the whole week, but that is a little bit expensive and something I've not managed to achieve yet. This year, we went on the final day, this Saturday. Linda and I go with another couple, and this year our mate Dan came along as well, so there were 5 of us. It was quite a logistical nightmare this year because there's another big event in June that Linda has been going to for well over 10 years now, that I've been going to for the last 5, and that is called Taste of London. We have been lucky over the years, mostly that Ascot will be 1 week and Taste of London will be the week before or the week after. This year it was the perfect storm and both of those events were on the same weekend. Obviously we couldn't miss out. By the time we found out when Taste of London was, we'd already committed and bought tickets for the Saturday at Ascot. Therefore we decided to go to Taste of London on the Sunday. This meant that to make both of these things work, Linda and I needed to work out where best to position ourselves for the weekend. As it turned out, we decided the best way of doing this was to book a hotel around the Liverpool Street area of London, which we did. So we went there on the Friday night, going out for dinner locally and having a relaxed evening. Then it was Ascot on the Saturday, which meant we used the Elizabeth line to get to my friend's place in Taplow. They collected us from the station. Then we got a taxi from their place into Ascot, which worked perfectly, and fair play to our taxi driver. He knew all the shortcuts and how to get us there as quick as possible. We got in. Now, I'm not going to tell you too much information about this next bit in case you start going there, but we found somewhere in Ascot that most people think might be linked or part of the royal enclosure. It's not. It's somewhere that anybody in the Queen Anne enclosure where we are can go. Touch wood, the last few years we've always found a seat with an umbrella. There's not big queues at the bars. There's toilets nearby. You see all the horses close up and there are bookies nearby. It's absolutely perfect. So as soon as we got into the racecourse, we headed straight there and secured ourselves a table. This year, for the first time, I was delighted because they actually had gluten-free beer. Gluten-free Peroni, which comes in bottles. I do drink cider, but not a massive fan. If I could drink lager, I will, but obviously it has to be gluten-free lager. I was so pleased when I found that out, and I ended up being served every time I went to the bar by the same girl. And the first time she poured it, because I'm so paranoid, I just wanted to double check the bottle before she poured it into the glass and gave it to me. So after that, every time I went up there, she showed me the bottle before she poured it into the glass to give me, which was great. And also as well, she warned me when they were nearly running out, because basically she said once the gluten-free Peroni have gone, they've gone, we won't get any more. So she told me when there was one left. Now, part of me thought, do I buy the second bottle at this point, or do I leave it to the fate of the gods and see if no one else is drinking it? I went back about an hour later and claimed the final gluten-free beer. So it seems like I was the only one drinking it, but it worked out perfectly. That was the most perfect thing about the day. Betting wise, I did not do too good. I had the winner of the last race, but it was a very short price favourite, so it didn't quite recapture some of the money I may have lost earlier in the day. But it's not about that. Only take to gamble the money you are prepared to lose. Use that as part of your budget for the day. If you win anything on it, great. If not, that is part of the money you've set aside to enjoy yourself. We always do go to the bandstand at the end of racing to have the sing-song. I love it. It feels so British. You've got the Union Jacks everywhere, the whole crowd singing along, and of course led by the military band playing the music. It's just a great end to a great day. Then we left Ascot and got a taxi back to Maidenhead, where we had dinner booked in a lovely restaurant by the canal there, El Cerdo. They, once again, as they did last year, looked after me brilliantly with my dietary requirements. Had a couple of nice glasses of wine in there and a bit of a debrief. Lovely way to finish off a great day's racing. And then for Linda and me, it was back on the Elizabeth line and back into London to get some sleep before the next day. Now, I did mention I was looking forward to wearing my new sunglasses I bought the previous week. On the Thursday before Ascot, I started getting a sty in my eye, which I've had before. This one was very painful. It looked horrendous, and of course meant I couldn't wear my contact lenses, so I had to wear my glasses. So by default, I could not wear my sunglasses. So despite finding a great pair of sunglasses I like, I still not had a chance to properly wear them out anywhere yet. What are the chances? After getting just about enough sleep, it was time to get up and get ready for Taste of London. There was one session on the Sunday to go to, midday until 5. We always get VIP tickets for this event because you get access to the VIP area, you get champagne on arrival and champagne when you enter the VIP area, and it comes with 3 dishes included. There are lots of pop-up restaurants who do a selection of dishes and you can go around and sample them. It is a really huge event. It's so much fun. There are loads of food and drink suppliers there. Lots of freebies given out as well, as people want you to sample and try their goods. We have got it down to an absolute T. We get there at a certain time before the doors open, get ourselves in the queue and then get in quite quickly, and then it's champagne on arrival, walk around for a bit with that champagne, VIP area for the second glass of champagne, and to find somewhere to sit and base ourselves. We normally go in a group of at least 6 or 7 people, which means we then take it in turns to walk around the event while the rest of the group keep our table for us, so we've got somewhere to eat our food. There are quite a few gluten-free options, or there were certainly more this year than there were last year. One restaurant that was there was Los Moches, where I have actually eaten before because they are a totally gluten-free restaurant. None of their food has gluten in any way. So needless to say, I went to them for 2 of my dishes and they tasted fantastic, and they did really look after me when I went there as well. Would happily go back and eat at that restaurant at some point. The other place where I got some food from, because they had a nice gluten-free option, was Oblix at the Shard, who were there. They did this lovely steak with mashed potato and peppercorn sauce. That was absolutely perfect. Those were the dishes I could have as part of my VIP ticket. I did additionally have some strawberries, which I bought right at the end. I had the final 2 strawberries, which meant the stall that was selling them could pack up for the weekend. They were so happy, I thought they might give them to me for free. Also, there's a company called Dolicious who were there, who make dough balls with ice cream in, which are fully gluten-free. So needless to say, I had to sample some of them. Jubel Beer were there as well, which is a gluten-free, fruit-flavoured beer. Had a pint of their peach beer, which was very nice. So generally, there were plenty of things for me to have. Also, while I was there, I did have a frozen pina colada because I love a cocktail and do think I'm Del Boy. It is such a fun event to look round. It is like the highlight of my girlfriend's year because, as I said earlier, she's so into her food and drink. She absolutely loves it and enjoys trying all the different food and having a look round. There's a company called Love Corn who make corn-based products and snacks, funnily enough. They are also fully gluten-free, so we went and saw them and had a chat to them on their stand and got our picture taken with them. Linda just loves anything with truffle on, and there's a company called the Truffle Guys who are there every year. She must have nearly all of their products. She wandered over to their stall to say hello and just to have a look. That was her plan. When I met her later, she had bought at least 4 more of their items to try. Everything you could imagine with truffle in, she has. There's truffle everywhere. I, fortunately, do like truffle myself, so I've got no complaints on that. It's very good. We stayed right till the end of the 5 hours of our session and left as they were closing. And what we found was, as it was the first time we'd been on a Sunday, it was a little bit quieter and a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere, which was interesting and made us think maybe we might go Sunday again next year. Although realistically, it does feel better if it's a Saturday. Maybe you don't limit yourself on some of the food and in particular drinks that you might try if it was a Saturday over a Sunday. This weekend we're off to North Wales to see my friend who I've known since we first met at primary school on our very first day, age 4. Going to see him and his family. So looking forward to that. I'll tell you about that and everything else I get up to next time we speak. A reminder, you can hear my radio show Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4 at radio9springs.com. That is it for now. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.